It's been said that hindsight is 20/20, but what if your foresight could be 20/22? Hello again, everybody. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And I'd like to have you join Eli and me as we discuss the importance of foresight in business. You know, foresight is planning for what we think will happen before it happens. In the context of your career, foresight can also be preparing for what you want to happen. It's about setting goals and then taking small, regular actions deliberately over time. And you do this to achieve your larger objectives. Before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to Amy Blaschka, who wrote a real interesting article that was somewhat inspirational in terms of discussing foresight today on Project Eli. Now, as we enter 2020, you want to make sure that your foresight will give you 2020 vision during the year. So let's go over 6 different ways to help you to increase your foresight. Now, the first one is stop making excuses and move past your fear. Now, stop if this sounds familiar. You've been meaning to get started, but you've been busy. So-and-so was holding you back. It's too risky. Practice some self-awareness to be honest about why you're making these excuses. Fear or ridicule, rejection, or yes, sometimes even success can manifest itself in some weird ways, appearing as procrastination, self-preservation, or perfectionism. But the real damage comes from the inaction that the fear enables. When you acknowledge why you've been stalling, you can finally get moving and make progress. Now, let me use myself as an example, and let's go back 1 year ago today. I was inspired to start my own video channel offering my insights because I felt schools aren't doing their job as completely as they possibly could. And I wanted to, first of all, focus with Eli, and I had everything all written out, exactly how I did it, but then having checked out and sampled some of the other pundits, sending in some of my writings, and I got so many people that said, why don't you start your own channel? Why don't you write a book? I decided, you know what? I owe it to my mentors that made me promise to pass along the information to do exactly that. And the YouTube venue couldn't be more perfect for sharing these ideas and concepts that are so absent in our public schools and our college system. So you got to stop making excuses. And my biggest fear was I am more ignorant about technical stuff than you can even imagine. And so that's the fear that was stopping me. I felt like, boy, I have all this knowledge, but I don't know how to put it on the venue. You know what? I made the decision that I was going to get started. All right, second thing is get clear on what you want. When you're trying to accomplish something, clarity is like key. It's essential. Take the time. You got to slow down from your daily business to give yourself some space and determine what your objectives are. Remember, clarity demands specificity. You can't be general. You can't say, I want to do this big picture. There's got to be specificity. There's no room for a wishy-washy attitude or objective. The more focused you are about your goals, the better. All right, my goal, number one goal, is to pass this information along to Eli, my number one son. On a secondary basis, I want to pass it along to a bigger audience. But primarily, I wanted to have something that when Eli is ready, and he's still a puppy right now, so a lot of this stuff is over his head right now, but later on, as he matures, as his education increases, as his situation changes, these things are going to be a lot more relevant right now than going out and finding out where his next basketball game is going to be. So, but there are other people that can use this information right now, so I decided I'm going to make it for Eli, number 1, and for the public at large, number 2. Third, create an environment for success. Your environment always wins and impacts you far more than what you realize. You can't make any significant strides without altering some elements of your environment, which includes your friends, your colleagues, location, habits, and your lifestyle. You got to manage your time by carving out space in your calendar for activities that are dedicated solely to achieving your goals. You got to surround yourself with people who support you and remove distractions and negative influences. And it's not just the who, but the what that you surround yourself with that either propels you forward or holds you back. Okay, this covers a number of different things. First of all, who you hang around with. You become a composite of the 5 people that you hang around the most. And your income is usually right in the middle of the high end and the low end of those two, by the way, as well. So pick the people that you hang around with very, very carefully. Now, sometimes that means that you have to go to some outside channels. In other words, if the people that you want to hang around with aren't necessarily in your orbit, go to the library, get on the internet, find those people. You can hang around with them electronically, can't you? All right, that's one of the advantages of the great stride in communication that we've taken today, is that you can find the people that you want to hang around with, even if you happen to live in a neighborhood or people that you currently respond with, work with, talk to, are not the ones that are going to help move you forward. Secondly, you have to create an environment for yourself, habits for yourself, that are going to help move you forward. You've got to have that quiet thinking time. You have to have that alone time. You have to have a place where you're not going to be disturbed, where you're not going to be distracted, where the temptation to be distracted is not there. These are key elements. And you've got to have, goals that you follow step by step by step, because they either propel you forward, your habits propel you forward, or they keep you in place, or they move you backward. Number 4 is to take some action. Now, you remember, when you studied the law of inertia, what does the law of inertia say? A body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. You've got to get your body in motion. Otherwise, your body's going to stay at rest. Now, that's about as simply as I can put it. You've got to take a step forward. Let me go back to my example. You remember that technologically I'm, shall we say, very challenged. But I wanted to take a step forward. Now, I'm sitting here and I'm writing all these things to Eli about how important it is to get started, how important it is to get to the starting line, how it's not necessary to have your entire game plan all figured out, but you got to get momentum, you got to get started. Well, hello, McFly. That applies to you too, doesn't it, Eli's dad? All right. So what did I do? After a while of sitting there and doing the wrong thing, I finally woke up and said, if this is what you're going to say, this is what you got to do. So what did I do? I just started going out and talking to people looking for help, and I was able to find a gentleman that did have some technological skills. I showed him what I was doing. He said that was good. Now, he wasn't the first person I came across. I must have spoken to somewhere, and I'm not exaggerating, between 50 and 75 different people before I came to Michael. Michael's the one that got me started on the technological aspect. So you can't give up. But how do you do that? It's like you have that vision, you have that dream, it's a burning desire, and what do? You follow through with it, and you set for yourself, you chunk it down into small goals. How do you do that? Well, you don't go and talk to 75 people in one day. You say to yourself, I'm going to approach 4 or 5 people today that I see and plead my case. That's why you make it a small, achievable chunk. And when you do that, the habit adds up and you will get result if you keep your focus. That's what I did. Number 5, find an accountability partner. Well, I've got 2 examples for you on that. First of all, because it's easy to be enthusiastic at the beginning of a challenge, but it's far harder to maintain grit and stay motivated as time goes by. Staying on track most of the time requires the aid of somebody else to help keep you motivated. That's one of the functions of a coach. Try to remember that you're human and practice some self-compassion. Give yourself a break. But remember that your goal is to progress. It's not to be perfect, but you've got to take a step and you've got to make action. And to help keep you motivated, it's good to have an accountability partner. 2 quick examples of that. First, one of the things that my mentor Bob Anderson taught me was that when you send people out in the field in a sales situation and they're knocking on doors, which can be a very discouraging thing, you have them make a commitment as to what they're going to accomplish. And when you say something out loud, it gives it more credence because you said it out loud. You want to, be a stand-up person. And when you send 2 people out together, that multiplies their ability to be persistent with it. It's much more difficult to discourage 2 people than it is to discourage one person. All right, so you want to send 2 people out together, have an accountability partner. Now, the other example I want to give was when I was in a business selling these legal plans. I was contacted by the number one salesperson in the entire company. He saw me climbing up the ranks very quickly. Within a couple of months, I became the number 3 salesperson in the entire company, which is a worldwide company. It's a fairly impressive statistic. The number 1 person, of course, in my state. And he saw me going up the ladder because being number 1, he's keeping his eye on making sure nobody's coming up behind him. That's the way he was, and that's the way you want a competitive person to be. He called me up, introduced himself. I was very impressed. I certainly knew who he was, and we became workout partners, and we challenged each other. And when he would tell me about the business that he wrote, what do you suppose it did to me? Well, I got to get out there and work harder because I want to write as much business as he writes. And vice versa. And we would talk every single day. We would go over scenarios that we ran into. We'd go over different things. We would help each other out. But we were mostly competitors. And in terms of being competitive, so we were friendly competitors. And that's okay. We had the same mindset. But the 2 of us working together, we were an accountability partner. I wanted to see what he was doing. He wanted to see what I was doing. And I wanted to make sure that I was as good a performer as he was. Unfortunately, he was better than I was, but I was darn close. And in this case, 2nd place was still a money-making operation. And finally, number 6, don't forget to look back. Foresight is about looking forward, but there's great satisfaction that comes with perspective about where you've been, how far you've come. Now, as an example, our channel today, Project Eli, we started off, didn't have all that many subscribers. I contacted a few people, said, hey, would you take a look, give it a listen? My friends, of course, they looked at it once and whatever. That's how people are. But I'm looking for a particular person. I'm looking for the people that have entrepreneurial mindsets, that are looking for success formula, that are getting started out, that are saying to themselves, hey, what is it that I'm not doing that I should be doing? Is there a formula for success? Give me something that gives me certainty so I know when I perform this particular action, this particular function, it's going to move me forward. Those are the people I'm looking for. The challenge I still face is I'm not reaching enough people. And that's kind of a YouTube thing. But you got to understand that there's a certain gestation period. The longer that you're out there, the more people will see, the more chance they have to spread the word. So I'm making some progress, and some of the people saying, so how's your channel going? I see that you're getting more and more subscribers, which I am. But the point is, they say, how's your channel going? And my answer is always the same. It ain't going as fast as I would like it to go. But you know what? You've got to have some faith. You've got to keep going. You've got to be persistent. So I invite those of you that are relatively new to my channel to go back and look at some of the stuff that I did in the beginning. I like to say it's pretty good. But what shows up on the on your computer on that little sidebar is only my most recent stuff. Go back and look. I have a lot of the basics. At the beginning I did the basics, the success formula, goal setting, the owner's manual for your brain, how you should be thinking, positive mental attitude, all those types of things. I strongly encourage you to go back and take a look at some of my first videos, because I've come a long way and I'm looking for new things to talk to you about, but I always find myself kind of regurgitating the same things to some degree, because there are certain principles, and I don't want to make up stuff that's like not important. So I want to keep it focused on what's important, what's going to move you forward. All right? Now, our thought for the day is and this is from Henry R. Luce. Business, more than any other occupation, is a continual dealing with the future. It's a continual calculation, an instinctive exercise in foresight. So let's have some foresight. Let's remember that we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note. So let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.